before we get started, I just want to say a quick thank you up top to overthecap.com and spottrack.com, where all contract numbers come from in this video. Alright everybody, welcome back to Pan Am Football. I'm Max Dean, and today we are going to be doing a viewer request. So we're finally catching up on a few of those, and this one came from Wizard a while back. So thanks Wizard for the request. This is about the Patrick Mahomes contract. So a couple of things before we start. If you like the video, throw me a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe, because we will be doing lots more of this stuff as the off season continues. And if you have a request for a particular contract or topic you want me to cover, just let me know, because I'll go over individual contracts. I'll also go over team building strategies, questions about position specific stuff. So that being said, as we look at the Patrick Mahomes contract, what we're gonna look at here is essentially there are a few different factors that come into play when you're negotiating a contract for a player, and we're going to be looking at how his stacks up in those particular categories. Now, there are lots and lots of things that are negotiated over, but I'm going to be talking about those which are kind of the preeminent negotiating points, and usually the ones where the main source of the conversation is based on these here. Okay. So aside from that, we're also going to be looking at the cap implications and just, a couple of other things here or there, whatever pops up into my mind. So the first thing to take a look at here are the preeminent negotiating points. Okay, so the first one here is total new years. Really quickly, what that is, essentially, if you sign a contract as a free agent, that's the whole contract. But if you sign as a player who is already under contract, it's the new years added to whatever you had left. Okay, so those are generally what are negotiated. If you have 1 year left on your contract and you sign a 5-year extension, the 5 years are the ones negotiated, and you will end up being under contract for 6 more years. Okay, so that's the basic concept. And Patrick Mahomes, you can see here that he is under contract for 12 years, including 2020 and 2021. But those are the 4th year of his rookie deal and the 5th year option of that deal as well. So 2022 through 2031, those are the new years of his contract. So 10 total new years. Next up, we have average per year. So this is the average dollars per year. Now this is only applied to the new years as well. So Patrick Mahomes signed a $450 million contract, which is certainly substantial, but the average is only applied to the 10 years that we're talking about. So if you're going to look at his contract again, you're going to see that there's a little bit more than $450 million here. It's more around $477 million, and that's because this does include the money that he had left in 2020 and 2021 from those 2 years I talked about a minute ago. However, those are not part of the negotiation. You can move money around a little bit in years that are not part of the negotiation if you want to, but it's not generally part of the negotiation itself. Quick example of that is that if you look here at the base salary for Mahomes in 2021, normally 100% of the 5th year option is as a base salary, but they turned it into a roster bonus instead. So again, it's not applicable to the average per year or anything like that. Just an interesting little note that I wanted to point out. Next, we have guaranteed money. So guaranteed money is something that's a little bit confusing. And I understand why. So there's a difference between fully guaranteed money and guaranteed money. You can see that they're actually separated out into talking points. So fully guaranteed money is 100% guaranteed when you sign the contract. So if you get hurt, if you get sick, if you get cut for whatever reason, there are ways to void those, via conduct detrimental to the team, stuff like that, but it's not likely. And so that's basically 100% guaranteed your money. And then the guaranteed money that's not specified fully, there are a couple of different types of guarantees. There are guarantees that kick in on a certain date. So sometimes it could be even the same year. So say, for instance, you had a guarantee that became fully guaranteed on the third day of the league year. That could be for the same year, or it could be for a couple of years out. And so Patrick Mahomes has a lot of guarantees like that. And then you also have injury guarantees as well. So money that's not guaranteed to you if you were released, but it does become guaranteed to you if you were to be injured playing football and were not able to sign a new contract with another team as a result of that. So when you're looking at Patrick Mahomes' contract here, basically you are going to have fully guaranteed money. That would be everything that you're seeing under 2020, 2021, and 2022, as well as 100% of the signing bonus that you see there. And then he has rolling guarantees. So what I mean by that are that in the year 2023, he has a date that is associated with the conversion to a fully guaranteed sum of money in 2025. And the same would be true with 2024 for 2026. And generally that would be his roster bonus. So basically, if he's still on the team in 2023, he guarantees his money 2 years out. And what that does is it's called a vesting guarantee. And essentially what that does is it functions almost the same as a fully guaranteed sum of money. It protects the team a little bit more than fully guaranteed, but to be frank, just because of the way that they work and likelihoods of being cut for him are so low that it's essentially almost a fully guaranteed contract. So you're looking at guarantees that total $477,631,000. Yes, that's more than the $450 million contract, but that's just because this number includes the remaining years from 2020 and 2021. So don't look too deep into that. It's just the way that the totals are accounted. And then as far as fully guaranteed money, that would be $63 million and some change, and that would be his signing bonus as well as salaries from 2020, 2021, and 2022 as well. I believe that is the full total of $63 million. Now, the final thing we're going to talk about quickly is new money in the first, second, and third year, etc. Now, basically all that means is the higher percentage of your contract that you have received by your first and then second and then third year is a way of kind of stacking up to what other players have earned. So some players it's not as important to. Some teams it's really important to in general. Some teams it's important to for a specific player. And the reason you might not want to dole out a lot of money in the first and second year to a player could be injury concerns, could be he's older and you're afraid of his body breaking down. It could be that you're afraid that his work ethic will diminish if he's earning a lot of his money early on. And then, and sometimes you want to do more up front just because it gives you more flexibility later. So there are different ways to look at it, but most players want their money earlier. So the earlier you get it, the faster you can invest it into, ventures outside of football, let it grow and things like that. So, when you have a contract, just because you make $10 million a year doesn't mean that it's $10 million every single year. You might make $4 million one year and then $16 million the year after that. And so, yeah, you're averaging $10 million, but that's not what you actually get every single year. So the more that you have accumulated by the first, second, and third year, fourth year, etc., are it can be a sticking point. So for Patrick Mahomes, his was a little bit unique in that way, and we'll talk about that in a second. So now that we're really looking at his contract, I just want to point a few things out about it. First of all, it is a very long contract. It is very unusual for an NFL player to sign a contract for more than 5 years. You'll see it periodically for like 6 years. You can see that happen. 10 years, you really don't ever see it. And so because of that, there are different ways to look at it, and I'm sure that some people would disagree with me, but I almost look at it as two contracts. And I do that because the average NFL extension is 4 or 5 years. And so the only way to really properly compare Patrick Mahomes to other players on a numerical basis is by splitting up those two different 5-year chunks. A couple of other things. He has an interesting layout to his contract as well. Up until 2026, his base salary is quite low, and his roster bonuses are pretty substantial. And then when you get to 2027, both spike, both his base salary and his roster bonus spike. And then from 2028 and onward, his base salary goes up and his roster bonus diminishes a little bit. And so it's interesting that they've done that, and I'm not 100% sure why, but those bonuses, those roster bonuses, are a lot of them are associated with the vesting guarantees in his contract. So it may have been a way to guarantee lump sum payments for Patrick Mahomes, because essentially the minutia of how they affect the team differently, it's pretty minimal. And in a salary cap sense, they don't affect the cap differently at all. So usually a roster bonus would be paid in one lump sum or a couple of lump sums, whereas the base salary would be distributed in basically 17 equal parts throughout the season. You'd get a weekly paycheck, basically. So for a player, it's better to get it all in one chunk. But you're getting most of it in the same calendar year anyway, so I'm not really sure why that would matter too much to him. And then for the salary cap purposes, it's all on the cap the cap year that it's attributed to. You can see the signing bonus here. There's 5 years worth of it. A signing bonus only affects the first 5 years of the contract that it is. It only affects the first 5 years of the contract in which it takes place. So, interesting here. This may be a confusing point to some people. So, the signing bonus applies to 2020 through 2024. And that's because the contract was signed in 2020 in the offseason. And so even though in terms of negotiation, it's the new money for the new years, that money can affect different years in different times. The reason that it's more in 2020 than any other year, because it has to be distributed equally, but it was a $10 million signing bonus. So really there's $2 million for each year as far as that signing bonus goes. And then there was approximately $2.5 million of signing bonus that was left over from his rookie contract. So there's a little bit of crossover in terms of signing bonus from rookie contract and first extension in 2020, and the other 4 years are all only $2 million. Another thing about Patrick Mahomes' contract is that it is very low in terms of signing bonus compared to the other players who play his position at a elite or near elite level. So $10 million is a very small percentage of the $450 million total that you're looking at. Generally, a team will look to do a larger chunk of that up front. And so one of the interesting things about Patrick Mahomes' contract comes, I think, as a result of the COVID effect on the cap and the lack of clarity surrounding the cap over the next year or two. So it was already agreed to that 2021 would have a salary cap floor of 175 million, but there's obviously no real clarity about what it would be in the years going forward after that. And so in 2020 his cap hit was already pretty low, since it was still part of the rookie deal. And then in 2021, it was pretty low as well. I mean, at least in terms of elite quarterback compensation. So it was a little over $20 million. Around $22 million, I think. So it's interesting that the Chiefs decided not to... actually, I should say it's interesting that Patrick Mahomes was okay with the Chiefs deciding not to put more money up front and disperse it out. So they kept that 2020 cap hit very low, and they kept the 2021 cap hit low in relation to all of the other years. Also, by putting very little into signing bonus, they basically allowed themselves to dictate however low or high his cap hit would be over the next couple of years. So just looking at this right now, if for some reason they needed cap space desperately in 2021, they can convert any of that roster bonus that they want to into a signing bonus. So essentially, they can split up that $21.7 million roster bonus 5 ways, and then, only 1/5 of that would be an impact on the 2021 salary cap. So you would take the $20 million from before, the previous signing bonus, the $990,000 base salary, and then what would be about $4.3 million in the roster bonus, and that would be the cap hit for that year. So you could bring the cap hit for Patrick Mahomes down from what is nearly $25 million to around around 7 million. You could bring it down to around 7 million, which would offer you quite a bit of cap space to drop from around 25 to around 7. And I'm not saying they will do that, but if they needed to, they could. I'm not saying they will do that, but if they needed to, they could. And now a couple of other things, and I'm going to show you another chart to kind of help visually explain some of the things that we're looking at. So now here of the 4 separate pieces of the contract, the way that I would encourage you to kind of look at this is you have the 2021 year, that's the 4th year of his rookie contract, the 2021 year, which is the 5th year option year of the rookie contract, and now the first 5 extension years, which is kind of like the first contract in the 10-year extension. It's 2022 through 2026. These are the years that would match up with the Deshaun Watson 5-year extension. And so what you would probably want to do, and I believe this is what the Texans and Watson's agent did when comparing them, since Mahomes signed first. So those first 5 years, the total new money that he receives in those 5 years is $201 million, $750,000 as well. And then when you average that out per year over the first 5 years, that's $40.35 million. Now compare that to Deshaun Watson's average per year. I believe he's at 39.75 or right about there, just under $40 million. And so you can see that he and Patrick Mahomes are essentially equal in that sense. And I think that, you probably won't find anybody who's going to make more than Patrick Mahomes over the next couple of years, just because at certain times there's a player that is so transcendent at his position that no agent can justify getting another player to top that, even if he's a very good player. I think you've seen that at different times with different positions where it's just you can't look at somebody in the face and say my client should make more than that player, because it's just it just doesn't pass the eye test. So, but they're very close. They're very, very close. And I think that this is a similar way that they looked at it, and that's why those numbers are so close. And then the last 5 extension years range from 2026 through 2031. And the numbers spike up here a little bit. So the total over the last 5 years would be $248,250,000. And when you average that out, the number jumps up to $49,650,000. So when you combine all 10 years of that, you're looking at $45 million per year. But in terms of comparing to other player contracts around the league, you would be really looking more so at that for the $40.35 million of the first 5 extension years. And the interesting thing about Patrick Mahomes is that he seems to have looked at himself in the mirror and said, this contract is going to make me all the money that I will ever need for the rest of my life. Okay? And so instead of putting himself in a position where he can negotiate an extension, get more new money up front in a few years, he really won't have the leverage to do that for a very long time. And he would have had to know that going into this deal. So this contract is so extraordinarily team friendly, and I know that you don't necessarily think that when you look at the totals for everything. Those numbers look really high. But what this has done is it has given the team as many options as you could possibly hope for in this type of contract. It's 10 years. That's 10 years of team control. It's 10 years of controlled cost. Controlled cost does not mean low cost necessarily. It means controlled cost. It means that if the market jumps, if the market surpasses Patrick Mahomes in 4 years, he cannot negotiate an extension. He cannot, it's very unlikely that he would try to negotiate an extension to increase the average per year. And so at any given point, the team can convert roster bonus or base salary into a signing bonus, which would lower the cap hit in the year in which it was done. And so it just gives them so much clarity when they're trying to build the team with other players. So, if they have a core set of players, they know that Patrick Mahomes costs exactly this much in all of these years. And if you want to have a year where you convert Patrick Mahomes any of his money into a signing bonus, you can put as much money as you possibly can from other players into that year. You know what I mean? So there's just a lot that you can do with this. And I think the Chiefs either did a fantastic job selling him on this, or Patrick Mahomes just went to his agent and said, look, I want to be the highest paid. Aside from that, I'll do pretty much anything you want to get good players on my team. And this is probably a happy medium in terms of that $45 million is jaw-dropping per year, that $45 million per year, that $450 million total. Like, that'll get you all the headlines. And then everything else is kind of in the court. The ball is in the court of the team, if you want to say that. And the other thing you're looking at is that he doesn't really have very much money up front, right? So his cash totals in the first new year, in the second new year, they are not going to compare favorably to other players at his position. And he must have said, I don't care. I really don't care. Because they kept the cap hit low in 2020 to sign other players. They kept the cap hit pretty low in 2021 as well. They only gave him a $10 million signing bonus. So when you're looking at that, in 2020, Patrick Mahomes only made, I guess it would be 10 million plus 800. Patrick Mahomes didn't even make $11 million in cash in 2020, and he signed that enormous extension. Like it's a huge contract, and in cash that he takes home in this year that he is playing in a Super Bowl right now, he's only taking home $11 million, actually just under, based on all the numbers that I have. So now, I don't want you to be out there thinking he's taking a discount. It's not the case. He's making the same amount of money by the end of his contract. As the years go by, he's getting everything that he deserves. He's still set the market. But the structure of the contract itself it's just so unusual. And most other players would want that money up front. They would want that money as soon as possible, with a larger signing bonus, most likely, and they wouldn't be ridiculously greedy. They would probably work with the team for what was doable, but to sign that huge contract and to not even take home $11 million, I think that I'm doing that math right, because the would be $10 million signing bonus, $825,000 base salary. That's it. And the way that some teams do it, he might not have even gotten 100% of that signing bonus in the year 2020. It probably did, since it wasn't a huge one. But the point is, without me beating it to death, is just that it is pretty remarkable that he agreed to this, and pretty impressive from a leadership position. And he also screwed over some of his teammates in a way that you're probably not thinking about, in that there will be players who will not have the length of career that he will. He is, as a quarterback, and a very young quarterback signing a long extension, a big extension, he'll see the end of this contract and probably, almost assuredly, get another one. Not this long, probably, but because of the position that he plays in his youth, that's not going to be an issue. And so what he's done is he's given the team leverage against all of the other players for the Chiefs or potential free agents to say, look, Patrick Mahomes did it this way. Patrick Mahomes took less in the early years. Patrick Mahomes structured it this way. And by all accounts, it seems like he's kind of encouraging players to do similar things, to get them to buy in, to get them to buy in and want to compete for a championship. And that's fantastic as a fan. You should be so pumped for reasons beyond just his play. But these other things that you're not really hearing about, you should be so excited about that. But it makes it really hard for the player who probably will have a 7-year career and may only have that one opportunity for the one extension that he might not play all the way through. Makes it really hard for him to play hardball when Patrick Mahomes has kind of said, hey, I'm taking one for the team. All of you guys should too. So, Anyway, that's been the Patrick Mahomes contract. If you have any other questions about it, I will be happy to answer. If I have a ton of questions, I can make another short video, but probably I'll just answer in the comments. So, but shoot me any questions you have about the Patrick Mahomes contract. Like if you have hypotheticals you want me to answer, because I can't just run through a trillion of them on this video. And if you have any questions about other contracts, let me know. If you have requests for me to do full videos, please let me know. I love the feedback, and I'm happy to do it. And honestly, I wish this one was done a little bit sooner. But thanks, guys, and I will see you all again soon.